The first question we're going to get into today, you guys, is there's been a lot of talk regarding the costs of AI. Considering the substantial environmental footprint associated with the data storage and computational demands of generative AI, how can different parts in the AI community collaboratively address and mitigate these concerns? One long question.
Yeah, it's pretty long. Ted, would you like to start?
Yeah, I think as I already touched upon, I think starting with using the right models and making sure that the partner you pick for infrastructure is building this on sustainable energy, which I think most large hyperscalers are, but still, even so, obviously, it's consuming energy. But I also think you can completely take it the other way around, and I think it was Google CEO Sundar Pichai who said that he sees AI more as something that will save mankind rather than kill mankind. And I think we're seeing already a lot of use cases in sustainability using AI, not just generative AI, but AI overall for everything from optimizing energy systems to analyzing, in nature, finding patterns in nature and helping, saving different plants and species and stuff. So I think there's a lot of use cases for AI in improving our sustainability lives, right? So I don't see it as a big problem if you're doing it in the right way.
Yeah, and if I continue, I agree with that, and also I assume for the next 2 years, for example, if we take for example 2025-26, I think we will have totally different kind of language models that we have now. So I think they will also develop, and the efficiency will come from there. So I think it's a problem that what is surrounding us at the moment, but I think we are going to take the steps for the future that we understand the problem and fix it.
Yeah, we definitely have a lot of use cases for the environmental uses for AI as well. But of course, there's the social costs and other costs as well that we have to take into account. Because it's the same discussion we've had, like so many technologies, like digital technologies, and even way back with industrialization, with the whole how this can affect the job market, like the people working in our companies. So that's also one thing that we really need to consider in this as well. And it's the same question always, no matter the technology.
And it's a very complex ecosystem, right? If let's say, if people instead of going to physical stores can do everything they want online, so what that means, I don't go to the store, which is good, but the person who worked in that store is doing something else now, and so it's a very complex, a lot of variables. So it's hard, I think, to calculate the impact of something because it's such a broad use case.
Yeah, and as you say that, it leads me to think, do you think this is going to be the death of physical stores and mainstream shopping as a whole?
No, I think we've been claiming death for a lot of different things, from cinemas to stores, right? I think though, as a physical store, you need to offer something else, something more. I have this example that I love. I was shopping clothes, and I decided to get it shipped to the store close to me. And when I got to the store, the guy in the store said, yeah, try it on. And by the way, we noticed that you checked these 4 things a lot when you were online, but you didn't pick them. But we shipped them anyways for you, so you can try and try them here. And then they're offering something more in the physical store. So I think and I think there's a lot of work needed to be done already. A lot of the most famous brands stores, when you go to that store to return something you bought online, they will go like, no, sorry, it's separate systems, just making you pissed off. So I think there's a lot of things you can do to kind of benefit from having physical stores, but you need to offer something else.
Okay. Definitely, yeah, there's the whole experience side of things in the stores, and even stores that are per se on the more traditional side, like retail clothing and stuff like that. They are experimenting on smart mirrors or something like this that they can try on clothes without actually trying on clothes. So that's also one direction that they can try out and see if the kind of public resonates with that. I think that's taking off, especially in Asia right now.
Okay. And from that anthropological perspective, do you think there's going to be a big change in behavior with the coming of generative AI?
Oh God, that's a tricky question. And always when you talk about like digital solutions and ways of working, I think this is a bit what Janne was talking about also in the Kela talk, that it's always so hard to get people to change their behaviors.
Yeah.
So it has to be something that is kind of meaningful as a reason to change that behavior. So you can't just expect that people will take tools into use without giving them a reason to use those. So that's, yeah, a really tricky problem with
But
companies.
interesting nevertheless.
Yeah.
Let's move on to question number 2. AI is not just about the models and the compute. What do you think are the key technical challenges that still needs to be addressed to unlock the full potential of generative AI?
I mean, I think I can maybe weigh in on this. I think in my talk I touched on getting to production, right? And I think there's still this gap between probable use case, nice demo, and then getting it actual working in production in your systems. So I think that there's still work to be done, and I think that a lot of companies are struggling with overcoming this final gap to production, and I think that's why in the past we've seen many AI projects fail, is that people don't emphasize this enough, getting to production, getting it right, and getting the organization involved, getting the infrastructure right. So that's my take on this question from a single company perspective, right? Not a whole societal perspective, but just as a company, I think many companies will find that to be the main hurdle.
Yeah, and if I can continue from there, I think the biggest thing that we are missing at the moment is the trust. You know, we have to use the technology also to bring the trust to the different kind of events when we are using the AI. So I think that is the missing part at the moment.
Yeah, I know. I agree. I really liked your slide with the human-centric and the strategy. Working through those to really make sure that you solve an actual problem. I'm out dancing, talking about the potential, and people go crazy. And then 6 months later, they realize they've just been playing around for 6 months, but coming back to the actual problem and what you're trying to solve. And also, I think what you described really well is you still need to make the data available. And it's hard sometimes because the data is in silos and AI feeds off data. And if you cannot bring that data together into the AI platform, that's still an architectural problem with data scientists that need to fix that. And I think on the trust problem, you have the concept of hallucinations that everyone is talking about, which actually is not such a big problem anymore, but it's still a problem if you really, really want to address the trust aspects. But I think, as you said, I think we will see models improving massively in the coming months. And also there's a lot of work going on right now. At Google, we call it enterprise grounding, where you take a model and you train it deeply on a data set, and you only allow it to answer questions on that data set. So even though the model somewhere knows who Elvis Presley is, it kind of forgets it, and it only answers questions about the data it was trained on. And we see this is significantly reducing the amount of hallucinations. But then I think the trust aspects comes down to people. The more people use this, it's a maturity, right, of trusting it.
So it's about literacy.
Yeah, exactly. And it will take a bit of time before people get there, I think.
Yeah. And there's probably also, I would like to bring forward also the concept of the organization that's required around models and model operations as well. It's not just like a magic AI bullet. You take this data and boom, you can do stuff. You need to keep it updated. You need to monitor it. You need to retrain or fine-tune it.
Yeah, that's the architecture problem again, right? As you mentioned, and I think it's really cannot be overstated how important it is to get these models working. I mean, if you have to, because the key competitive differentiator is really going to be your data, your own data. And I think it's an important point that there's a consumer side to the models, and then there's the enterprise side. And the enterprise side really will require you to have a data architecture that supports using these models in an intelligent way, and maintaining a knowledge base, making sure that the model is only allowed to answer questions from that knowledge base, then you don't have the problem with hallucinations. But it requires you to maintain a knowledge base. It requires you to maintain a model in production, continuously monitor how is it doing, is it having the expected impact. I think is a huge point. You still need, I think, KPIs to understand, are we doing the right thing? Are we actually solving the problem still 2 years later since we deployed our AI model? Is it still relevant? Yeah.
It's almost as it is too easy to create amazing POCs. It's almost too easy to do it. I think it's great because it inspires people, but as you say, from those in super simple, inspiring POCs to actual use cases, it is still a bit of a distance to go to do that.
And looking at how the data projects have developed, I've done a lot of data projects before actually focusing on AI, and it used to be like you get the first data sets, couple of data sets, you talk to these engineers, get them out of that database and so on, you model them, and then you do this one BI dashboard on them, then you show, hey, look, we can get these kind of stuff out of it, and then you're almost half done. You just need to staff it and productize it, and then you can go into production with it or start using it. But with AI, exactly, you have these magic almost looking studios and sandboxes that you can test with a few documents and get, hey, it actually works. Okay, let's do this. And then you're like, well, we need to do a few things.
Maybe to expand a bit on the question, which was key technical challenges,
Yes.
but of course we have the human challenges as well, always. And it's all well and good to have these few individuals who are really excited about trying new things and experimenting. But that's usually, in most companies, like a small minority of people. So how to actually get them motivated and to start solving the problems that are relevant to them is always the key question here as well.
And I think there you have an inspirational part. I think over the last 5 years, a majority of time I spent evangelizing about AI was to IT departments. Right, but no, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but IT departments are not the ones driving the business, right? So back to your point, enabling the average person at the company, by their desk, in their field or whatever work they do, to start thinking about, well, there's probably a better way to do this, and then they can come to IT to help build it. I think that's a magic part in enabling everyone to see the potential in it.
But then it might also be a question of accessibility, right? As you touched upon in your presentation, right now we're seeing a lot of people gimmicking around with the consumer side of things, whereas the enterprise side of it, it's still early days.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to question 3. Misinformation and lack of understanding is fueling a lot of the hype and the doomsayers. How do you think the public could be educated about the capabilities and limitations of generative AI in order to foster informed societal discourse?
I can talk about this for an hour, so I'll let you start maybe.
I think one of the best way to educate yourself and others is to really, live that life, try those solutions, and that's the best way to understand really. Of course, we need to educate people and, create. We have to be responsible from our side at least, and I think the other actors are also agreeing that. But we still need to educate our customers. But I think the best way is to, learn in real life, but in good way and in like a secure way. So that is, for example, in our case, we are going step by step, because of course we understand our role in society also, that we just cannot do. We could do from technical point of view, we could do a lot of other things also, but we don't, because we have to be responsible also there. And one of the side of the responsibility is the that we are able to help people to understand really how to use those solutions and also how to use them right.
I think it's definitely important to keep kind of educating the public, but it can't also be on the individual of the kind of public to learn everything there is to learn. That's why companies, like you said, have a really big responsibility themselves, because everything is changing so fast right now. You cannot expect people to be able to keep up with that all the time. So just being responsible and doing the decisions for your company is the thing that you really need to pay attention to.
Yeah, and I would like to I would think also that customers will learn, teach us also. So I think that is a very important way of seeing things, that, the best advice could be that comes from those customers. I think if you look at the debate that's going on in Denmark, at least the public debate, I think there's a huge interest in learning about AI from many people. So I think that this is something that will evolve over time. I'm not really sure I have a concrete answer to the question, but my take on it is that people really can. I mean, it's not just CTOs and CIOs that can see that this is a huge wave that's happening and a huge technological impact. I think most people actually recognize that and are interested and want to learn more about AI. At least that's people I interface with, and I think the public debate in Denmark shows that people really have an interest in this and can see that this is a huge transformative technology. Yeah. So I think over time we'll see more people educate themselves. I also think we have a responsibility, of course, to show as companies how we're using AI, and also there's going to be an AI Act soon that's going to regulate some how we use AI. But I think it'll be a gradual change. I'm not sure it will happen overnight.
No, I agree, but I also think, to some sense, I think media and journalists have a responsibility. You know, with the kind of click economy that we're living in today, you get a lot more clicks on your news webpage if you put "AI will kill us all" than if you put, AI found 99% of cancer tumors. That's not. You get 10 times more clicks on the first one, so you skip the other one. So I think that's also, in this world and time of awareness. I think we have a pretty famous case in Sweden this summer when we have this radio show where you have prominent people get an hour to tell their story about something. And we picked this super AI doomsday person to get an hour. And he was not introduced as a super doomsday, but rather introduced as the most prominent subject matter expert on the planet on this subject. I get 1,000 questions about that every day, and I wish we could have done that differently. So obviously it's that, but I also think the EU with legislation around this, I think that will get better and better. I think currently the EU is slightly too focused on facial recognition, which is a fraction of AI. But I think as they get their ideas right and start to kind of mature this as well from a legal perspective, that will also create a better trust. But most importantly, let's not forget, just because we are maybe techie and we surround ourselves with people who are a little bit like us, the average person in the Nordics do not know what ChatGPT or Bard is. They have no clue. They don't know what generative AI is, right? So we're still far away from that kind of general adoption that will happen over time.
Yeah. Maybe if I add to the wider picture, for example, in Finland we had a couple of years ago these free courses for every Finnish people to educate them by use of AI. And I think there's hundreds of, thousands of Finnish people that have gone through those courses already.
Oh, cool.
So that is one way to provide. And there were a couple of, private sector actors and universities that started that ongoing thing. But of course, we need another one because things change so fast. But it was a great example that you could use. In a pretty amount, like a small amount of money and time, you are able to create that kind of impact for the whole national level at least. So that would be some take on from the other countries also to follow.
But when you maybe think about media literacy and when you mention journalism, you think about how long statistics and graphs have been around, and still it's super easy to deceive people just by showing a little bit different presentation visually of what the statistics are. So that's maybe one benchmark we can use to think about how easy it would be to kind of push the opinion of people regarding AI as well in a certain direction.
Yeah, I agree. I think the media bears a responsibility in educating people, and I think right now it's not done in a very good way. An example could be the topic of bias as something that the media constantly talks about, and it is an issue. I'm not understating that fact, but there's also a flip side to that argument. You could actually use AI to be more unbiased as a human. This is actually something we do in Lederne, where if I, as a manager, write a job listing, I'm going to hire someone, right? And we put it online. It's actually screened by an LLM that looks for uninclusive words, biased words that I've personally used. And I think it's an important point, right? That people are also inherently biased. And we can use technology that is also biased, but we can use it to be more unbiased ourselves. So there's also an alternative story, which I think is not told that much.
Super good point. I think there's a bit of narcissism going on in humanity right now, like we are perfect. Like, oh, it's biased. People are the most biased things on the planet. Yeah. People are the most dangerous things on the planet. I think there's a lot of problems and the fear or the threat for mankind that humans are, right? So I think there's definitely taking a step back, and humans get it wrong all the time, be that doctors, be that whoever it is, right? So using these tools, which I think is inherently less prone to giving the wrong information, but then we can make sure to have humans fronting them for safety, security, and control. But yeah, there is a bit of narcissism going on right now, I think.
Let's take the question number 4.
Yeah.
Now slides. I think most agree that AI should reflect and represent a broad and exclusive spectrum of human values and experience. How do you think interdisciplinary collaboration can play a role in advancing the state of the art in generative AI, and how can such collaboration be fostered?
So maybe I can say something to this, because I think we really focus on getting interdisciplinary efforts involved when we deploy an AI model. As I showed in my talk, we really take in subject matter experts and ask them, what do you think of this result from the AI model? Does it look correct? And also giving them some control in that they can say, actually, this prediction was not correct. This classification was false. And I think it just gives so much more value that you bring in various subject matter experts and ask their opinion. It's also way easier to get buy-in. It also helps educate people. So I think at least in a single company context, I think that it's really important that you involve various groups of people.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that. And many companies like Kela and Google and many others, us included, already have like this broad spectrum of expertise and backgrounds. But a lot of companies don't, so they kind of have to build that diversity up from the ground, which is a really big project. So you can either hire in, or you can maybe buy some consultation or projects, but it's still a lot to handle for those companies who are still starting out on a journey. But it is super important to do, because when you do impact assessment, for example, for your products or anything that you are planning to do, you cannot really have only like a couple of technical perspectives on that. So you need to look at it from like a social sciences point of view. I may be biased in this, and then ethicists and designers and whatever you can come up with. So those people bring to the table really different problems and issues to be solved. And if you have problems, that doesn't mean that you can't actually start doing anything. You just are more aware of the issues and can mitigate those and try to take those into account.
Yeah, and I also think it's the responsibility of the large, large LLM manufacturers and generative AI. The models we provide, I think we have a responsibility in trying to make them, as unbiased as possible. If you, as a comparison, if you use Bard and you ask Bard a question, it takes a few seconds before it answers, and it doesn't start to answer a little bit slowly. It waits until it's done, because once it's done, it bounces the answer of a bias engine, a hatred engine, a racist engine, before we provide the answer. And that's how we built the solution natively, to help people, right, to educate people. Because I think also part of the problem here is that what's biased in one part of the world and what's politically correct in one part of the world is not the same in another part of the world. So if you're a global company, Google has decided on what we believe is right, and we build that into our tools. And there's probably parts of the world where people get very annoyed when there's, a mix of people turning up in picture generation. They just want to have the people, that look like them. But somewhere you need to take a higher ground, and this is what we believe as a company, as a global company. This is what we believe is morally right, and that's how we will build our solutions. And I think we will see that from the large manufacturers. But the problem is there's a lot of different providers out there. But I definitely think the big manufacturers should be held responsible for providing the tools to help organizations build this safely.
Maybe to continue a bit on the, Jon mentioned the blog we wrote about the synthetic users, and that also has to do a lot with diversity. To clarify, synthetic users or silicon sampling is when you give the generative AI or ChatGPT or whatever you're using a role, kind of you're a German farmer, and then you ask them, what would you think about this product, or what is your opinion, and what do you want? And that might be a really good tool to kind of bounce your own biases off it to see if you have any blind spots or have maybe create some hypothesis on what you might solve, but you cannot really replace your actual human insights with that, because that's data, it doesn't experience or feel anything. So you actually can use it to your advantage, but if you only use synthetic users, you are really in the risk of getting really average data, maybe. And it doesn't really have the diversity that people have.
Yeah, and I think that is very important notion in that, because, for example, we are doing cooperation, a lot of cooperation with different organizations from totally different sectors. And why we do that, there could be that we have same kind of solutions, but because the context is so different, it brings you and together for our organizations, our partners, like more knowledge about those things. That why, for example, in that context, things look different, and why they're getting different kind of results, and why we are getting the different results from our case and our context. Unless the data, of course, is the one big factor over there, but there's other things also. So we can learn from each other, at least in this kind of time when everything is changing so fast. And I think the rule could be that don't do anything by yourself.
Well said.
When it comes to the collaboration, we talked a little bit about that previously as well, prepping for this event. And you mentioned, Janne, that there are, different agendas when you go into collaboration. In what way do you think that plays a role in terms of generative AI and collaboration in that sense?
Yeah, that is one of the hardest part. But I think when we collaborate and trying to do new things in new kind of ecosystem, we have seen that you have to understand the incentive models of different actors. Because it's like you could have the same, we want to do this, but when you have to put the money, when you have to put the people, and when you have to really do things, that's what separates those cases and those actors. So the incentive, the better you understand the incentive models, the better success, percentages you have in there.
I think that's what I have for now. Yeah. Do you have anything that you want to add, Jon?
No, I think we covered pretty well.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.